Lakers fans, the atmosphere around the team has shifted in a way that feels completely different from the past few weeks. After dealing with injuries stacking up one after another, after watching the rotation get thinner and thinner, and after seeing role players trying to hold the fort while the stars recovered, the team finally feels like it is heading toward a turning point. The big headline, the thing everyone has been waiting to hear for what feels like forever, is that LeBron James is truly on the verge of returning to the court. And that possibility alone has brought a whole new energy to Los Angeles. The only real question left is whether he suits up against Utah in the next matchup or the one following it, because everything else points to his comeback happening any moment now. What gets the fan base even more excited is that this is not just about LeBron returning. This is about the entire roster finally edging near full strength. One by one, players who were sidelined for weeks have been cleared. The rotation pieces who were forced into bigger roles are now getting reinforcements. Even guys who were considered long shots to return soon have made progress. Suddenly the Lakers, who spent the beginning of the season juggling injuries like some kind of impossible balancing act, are staring at the real chance of having every player available on the same night. That alone feels like a victory before the ball even goes up. But the part that truly intrigues fans is imagining what this team might look like when it is not held together by emergency lineups and patchwork adjustments. This is the moment the coaching staff has been waiting for. Now, they can experiment with purpose instead of necessity. They can choose lineups based on strategy rather than desperation. They can evaluate which combinations naturally click and which ones need more time. And they can finally look at the roster and ask the important questions. Which players fit next to the stars? Who thrives with more responsibility and who thrives with less? Who becomes expendable? And who forces their way into the long-term plans? That evaluation process becomes even more significant as the season enters that stretch where decisions about rotations and potential trades start to come into focus. Historically, this is when the Lakers begin identifying the adjustments they need. It is not unusual for the team to make moves earlier than the league's deadline, so the next few weeks may shape the direction of the entire season. All of this leads to the topic that ignites debate every time it comes up, the starting lineup. With everyone finally returning, the question of who stays in the opening five becomes unavoidable. The most logical adjustment, at least on the surface, will be shifting one of the forwards back to the bench to strengthen the second unit. And the best part is that the player most connected to that move has already said in the past that starting or coming off the bench does not matter to him as long as he gets the opportunities and the minutes that matter. That mindset makes everything easier because it means the coach can design lineups without having to worry about bruising anyone's ego. Still, the biggest challenge is figuring out how to build the best possible lineup around both Luka and LeBron. Luka is the type of player who likes to set the tone early. He uses the opening quarter to establish himself, to attack mismatches, to force defenses to react, and to control the pace his own way. Because of that, the players around him in the first minutes need to complement his style. They need to defend, they need to run, they need to move without the ball, and most importantly, they need to allow him to dictate the offense without feeling crowded. This is why so many people argue that the first lineup of the game should prioritize defense. It is easier to inject offense later than it is to fix a defensive meltdown that happens right at the beginning. Everyone remembers how quickly certain games slipped away when the Lakers did not have the defensive presence to match the opponent's early energy. When the offense comes slowly and the defense is not strong enough to hold the line, the scoreboard could turn ugly in a matter of minutes. But if the team starts with defensive intensity, even on nights when the shots are not falling, they can keep the game under control until the rhythm appears. And this is where LeBron's return becomes crucial. His presence elevates the starting unit on both ends. Offensively, he can initiate plays without over-dribbling. He can space the floor with catch-and-shoot looks he has worked hard to improve, and he can punish smaller matchups in the post. Defensively, he adds communication, strength, awareness, and the ability to protect the paint when needed. When you put him next to Luka, alongside a guard who can defend, a wing who competes physically, and a center who anchors the interior, You get a lineup that can control the tempo, slow down opponents, and still generate high-level offense even on off nights. This brings the conversation back to Austin Reaves. A lot of fans wonder if he should be moved to the bench to become the engine of the second unit. There is real logic to that idea. Reaves is a polished offensive creator, someone who can run pick and roll, someone who can generate shots for himself and for others, and someone who excels when he has the freedom to manipulate the defense. Against reserve units, he becomes an even bigger threat. But at the same time, Reaves is having one of the strongest stretches of his career, and removing him from the starting lineup might disrupt his rhythm in a season that is incredibly important for him personally. Realistically, the team likely keeps him as a starter for now, both because he deserves it and because it keeps the environment stable. With that in mind, the shape of the lineup becomes clearer. The team just needs balance. Luka handling the opening tempo, LeBron providing force and versatility, a defensive guard who controls the perimeter, a wing who brings size and hustle, and a center who defends the paint. The puzzle pieces fit more naturally now that the team is healthier, and that gives the coach freedom to rotate the bench in ways that maximize the entire roster rather than relying on emergency patches. Meanwhile, the bench rotation becomes one of the most interesting questions. With so many players returning at once, someone is naturally going to lose minutes. That is unavoidable. Players who were getting extended opportunities because the roster was short will now need to fight to maintain their place. Some young players showed real promise, especially with their intensity and athleticism, but not everyone can stay in the rotation when the roster is full. The coach will need to find the balance between development and winning, choosing which talents need to play now and which ones can continue growing behind the scenes. And this is exactly what makes the next stage of the season so exciting. For the first time, the Lakers can play the way they were built to play instead of improvising every night. They can experiment intentionally. They can mix lineups to see what combinations create the most chemistry. They can decide which units defend the best together, which ones push the pace, which ones create mismatches, and which ones struggle. There will be nights where the lineups look strange, nights where certain experiments do not work, and nights where unexpected combinations suddenly spark something special. That process is part of building a team that wants to compete deep into the season. As the rotation tightens, the coaching staff will face the challenge of deciding which players complement the stars and which ones are better suited for shorter bursts of energy. Some of the younger pieces who stepped up during the injury stretch showed exactly the kind of hunger the team loves: relentless defense, commitment to rebounding, and the courage to make the simple plays that keep possessions alive. Those qualities become even more important in crowded rotations because coaches naturally gravitate toward players who can impact the game without needing the ball or disrupting the structure of the offense. The players who defend, run the floor, and stay locked into their assignments almost always carve out minutes regardless of how deep the roster becomes. There's also the question of how the big man rotation settles, because the center position changes drastically depending on whether the lineup around it is built for speed, spacing, or physicality. When LeBron and Luka share the floor, they often prefer a center who can protect the paint, but also move well enough to keep up in transition. That allows the team to play faster without giving up interior defense. But when one of them sits, the team might benefit from a big who stretches the floor or plays with more physical force inside. The flexibility to use different types of bigs becomes a critical advantage, and that variety may determine who stays in the rotation and who becomes more situational. Another interesting dynamic is how the forwards fit into the new structure, especially the players who thrive on hustle, length, and defensive disruption. These are the types of guys who can shift the rhythm of a game with a single sequence. A steal leading to a fast break, an offensive rebound creating a second chance, or a contested block that energizes the crowd can transform the momentum instantly. When the team was shorthanded, those plays were essential for survival. But now, with the stars returning, those same role players may help the team dominate stretches of the game instead of simply staying afloat. Their value becomes more strategic than emergency-based. However, Not every player who contributed during the injury period will find consistent minutes. That is an unavoidable reality when a roster is loaded with depth and versatility. Some players naturally fit better next to certain stars, while others struggle to find their spots without the ball. Some are stronger defenders, but limited offensively, while others provide scoring, but have trouble holding their own on the other end. The difference now is that the coaching staff can make decisions based on matchups and game flow rather than necessity. And that freedom will reveal which players truly belong in the core rotation and which ones are more situational pieces. The excitement around this phase of the season also comes from imagining how the bench offense evolves. If Reaves remains in the starting lineup, then the second unit will rely on different creators, and that means some players will need to expand their roles. A few bench guards will be asked to handle the ball with more confidence, make quicker reads, and take advantage of defenses that shift too heavily towards stopping the returning stars. This is where players with natural scoring instincts can thrive, especially when facing second units that may not have the same level of defensive structure. One of the most fascinating parts of this transition is watching how the returning players reintegrate into the system. When someone as impactful as LeBron re-enters the lineup, the entire floor geometry changes. Shooters get cleaner looks. Bigs get easier rolls to the rim. Defenders have clearer coverage assignments because LeBron communicates and rotates at a level that elevates everyone around him. And perhaps most importantly, players who were carrying heavy loads during the injury period can now settle into their true roles instead of forcing plays they are not built to handle consistently. That shift alone should make the offense smoother and the defense more connected. It also raises expectations for how the Lakers perform against top-tier opponents. With a full roster available, the team can finally test itself in a real way. Earlier in the season, every major matchup came with a frustrating asterisk because key players were out. Now, the team can run its preferred schemes, rely on its ideal lineups, and measure itself honestly against the strongest teams in the league. That is where the coaching staff can gather the most important information. How does the team handle physical defenses? How do they respond to fast teams that push the pace relentlessly? How do they hold up against the elite scorers who force constant help defense? These answers shape the decisions that will matter most as the season unfolds. With full health also comes more pressure because expectations naturally rise. The fan base knows what this roster is capable of when everyone is available. They know the stars thrive when surrounded by versatile role players. They know the blueprint for success includes physical defense, smart positioning, ball movement, and timely shooting. Now that the team finally has the pieces to execute that blueprint, the standard goes up. Every slow start, every sloppy quarter, every defensive lapse will be judged more harshly because the team can no longer hide behind the excuse of missing half the rotation. And that pressure can be a good thing. It sharpens focus, eliminates complacency, and forces the group to hold itself accountable. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on. Whispers are swirling through the halls of the Lakers organization after a shocking internal scandal reportedly led to the abrupt dismissal of one of the team's assistant coaches. According to sources close to the situation, tensions within the coaching staff have been simmering for weeks, but what finally pushed things over the edge remains unclear. Rumors suggest that the incident involved heated disagreements over strategy, player management, and possibly off-court conduct, sparking a firestorm that the front office could no longer ignore. Eyewitnesses claim that head coach DARVIN was visibly furious in meetings following the revelation, demanding immediate clarity and accountability. Those familiar with Ham's coaching style describe him as someone who tolerates little disruption behind the scenes, and the ousted assistant may have underestimated just how seriously internal cohesion is taken at the Lakers facility. Insiders hint that Ham's frustration is not only about the incident itself, but also about the potential distraction it could create for the team's season trajectory. Fans and analysts alike are now speculating about the ripple effects this shakeup might have on team dynamics. Could this disruption affect player confidence or locker room morale? Some voices in the basketball community argue that Ham's decisive action might ultimately reinforce discipline and unity, while others suggest that a sudden staff change could sow uncertainty at a crucial moment. Social media is already buzzing with theories, ranging from secret disputes over rotations to alleged clashes of personality, with no shortage of dramatic narratives emerging from the rumor mill. Though the Lakers organization has yet to release a formal statement, sources say internal discussions are ongoing, and leadership is reportedly seeking a replacement who can align with Ham's vision without compromising stability. Meanwhile, speculation continues to mount over whether this is an isolated incident or indicative of deeper friction within the coaching ranks. For now, the Lakers' world is abuzz, and all eyes are on how Ham will steer his team through the aftermath, with fans eagerly awaiting hints of how this scandal might reshape the locker room hierarchy. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.